Listen, after speaking with hundreds of people on the podcast from all walks of life and cybersecurity and technology, there's one thing that I've learned over and over and over again is that you always need a team. You always need an expert by your side, and you cannot do things alone. Welcome to the Hacker Valley studio. Run the intro.
Who says tech can't be human?
Hello. My name is Jennifer Langdon, producer at Hacker Valley Media, and we're doing something new with the show in case you couldn't tell yet. I've been working here behind the scenes for a while, and this is kind of my way of breaking through the fourth wall. So welcome, and I'm looking forward to interacting with all of you. With me, I have Ron Eddings, CEO and co-founder of Hacker Valley Media. Today's show is all about having a team behind you, and not just any team, but a team of subject matter experts, right? That can help you through a range of cybersecurity issues and challenges. I'm talking about MSSPs. And I got this to throw up here too. In case you don't know what that is, managed security service providers. So first order of business, we have to give a big thank you to today's sponsor, ContraForce. They are changing the game for your security, for your workspace through hyper automation and empowering MSSPs, MSPs, and security teams across the world. We also have a special guest that will be joining us today, Ricardo Nicolini. So Ron, you're going to kick us off today. What is an MSSP? Because I've heard of MSPs. Yep. Last year I was working on something and I misspelled something wrong and I didn't know there was that extra S in there. So what is the difference? Like, what should we know about MSPs?
There's a lot. And I feel like I'm still learning myself. And that's why we have a true expert with us who's been in the MSSP game for a while. Ricardo is going to be joining us in just a few. Also, one order of business. This show is completely live. As Langdon alluded, we're doing something new. We have a new co-host with me. So I'm very blessed, fortunate, and happy to have you on the show with me, Langdon. But on to the MSSP topic. An MSSP is somewhat synonymous to an MSP sometimes. Sometimes we hear the word MSP and we're like, okay, MSSP as well. But there's a little bit of a difference. An MSSP is a managed security service provider. This, as you would guess, is someone that is managing security for your organization. There's a lot of overlap when you look at MSSPs, but there's also a lot of uniqueness when it comes to services because there might be additional things that an organization needs, especially for like someone like an enterprise organization. An enterprise organization might have hundreds of applications just in the cloud. They might have thousands of users, whether they be full-time employees or contractors. So an MSSP that supports enterprises might have a lot more unique and boutique services like threat hunting or threat intelligence. And maybe if you're an MSSP that's supporting small to medium-sized businesses, you'll have not so many services. And it's like, hey, we just do everything end to end. About 30% of our audience work in the enterprise. And I've worked in the enterprise. I used to work for Intel Corporation. When I worked there back in 2017, there was no MSSP that we used. MSSPs also weren't as well known and there weren't as many companies at that point. Now, Langdon, I got to ask you a question. What would you do, right? You know, we get breached at Hacker Valley, knock on wood, that will never happen. But we get breached.
What?
Who responds to the incident?
I don't think we have a whole team of people to respond. Let's put it like that.
It would be us banding together, right?
Doing it together.
we would band together and we'd try to figure something out. And this kind of goes to the importance of an MSSP. Even for cybersecurity vendors that I've worked with and for, a lot of them don't have a dedicated security team that's looking at the output of their logs, that's looking at the output of what are users doing and those analytics. So having MSSP is like having a full-time team member or team members that are looking at that information and looking at alerts. MSSPs really bring order to all that chaos and give you a framework and a team to respond to things in a better and more proactive way.
Yeah, Ron, we got to bring on Ricardo here. He's the CTO at Bulletproof, and he's going to talk to us, I think, a little bit more about what MSSPs do. Right, Ricardo?
Yep. Hey, guys.
Hey, welcome to the show, Ricardo. It's a honor, pleasure. How did I do with the MSSP definition?
You did fairly well. Let's put it this way. I would say that it is interesting to see that we live in an industry that's so new that we usually struggle with our own terms. Or as I usually say, we need to come to terms with our own terms. Because what you might understand as an MSSP and what I understand as an MSSP, just because I live in the industry, might be two things different. And we see a lot of that, right? When we get into the weeds of it, people think, would an MSSP take care of firewall management? Would they take care of antivirus management? Would they do pen tests? And then we go into those lacks of understanding or conflicts of how you understand something, right?
Right.
But to what I think, MSSPs need to have one big mission, which is to find what's wrong and to make it stop and then fix it. That's it. You find whatever is happening, a breach, a compromise, a beginning of doesn't matter. You find it through threat hunting, through event monitoring, through log monitoring, through security posture improvement. You find it. You find it, and then you correct it fast.
Right. So what I'm hearing is you all are like you said, you're finding and preventing it. How do you find it and prevent it? Like every organization is so unique. You probably have many different customers.
Yes.
How do you get to the point to where you understand their environment, their culture enough to, respond to things in the best manner?
Yeah. And well, you're going to hear me say the name of the game is a few times because this game here, we need to be fast, but we also need visibility. Some companies, you're going to see some products around a pseudo vertical that we are creating in cyber called observability, right? It's sort of a buzzword right now. But what's important here is how much of your digital state I can see through my platform, and being a little bit of platform agnostic here, through a security platform that will collect as many logs, as many signals as possible from everything you do digitally, on-prem, on cloud, different clouds, doesn't matter. As much information as I can get, then I'll put it through my, let's call it quote unquote, black box. And my black box is going to tell me what's going on in your environment if I need to, pay attention to certain parts of your environment. Let's say because Ron, that never been to Jamaica before, just popped out logging in from Jamaica. So you're probably going to get a call saying, hey, are you on vacation there? Or is someone pretending to be you?
It's funny that you mentioned that because I'm actually going to Jamaica in July for the first time. So that login will be me.
Will be you.
What is outside of the scope? Like, it sounds like, it can be everything in scope: firewall management, user, identity and access management. Is there anything that is out of scope for MSSPs as a whole, or even for your company, Bulletproof?
Yeah, we try to organize our practices to keep them focused on what they need to do, right? Mm. So in Bulletproof, we have an MSP practice and an MSSP practice, hence the missing S that you guys were talking about in the beginning. Yeah. So the MSP practice deals more with information technology, IT itself, IT outsourcing, IT project, and all that. So the way we organize ourselves is we think that firewall management belongs with MSP. However, my MSSP practice is very much deeply interested in the logs that will come out of the firewalls. So we work together to say, you manage the firewalls, you manage the rules, you deal with the client, you make it happen for the client, but give me the logs so I can monitor what's going on and learn from the logs and see if we have, let's say, traffic going towards a known botnet, a known malicious IP address, or something like that that you can learn from try and tell. And then you correlate that and you can help your client say, hey, I don't know what's going on with your host ABC, but it's trying to get in touch with a known malicious host. Let's have a look into it and see what's going on in there. And other things like a pen test. We don't think, and we did that in the beginning until we found our why, we found our North Star. But we don't think that pen tests, threat risk assessments, network risk assessments, they would belong with an MSSP practice. They are more aligned to a governance, risk, and compliance practice. And we have one of those in Bulletproof as well. So we said, let's focus our security operations center and our MSSP practice around the core mission of that. And let's give the assessment to the other division that does assessment best. Let's give the tools and software management to the other division that will do that best. And let's do what we do best. We find security incidents, we make them stop, and we remediate them.
Love that. That's powerful. I think that that's crucial. And, when we first started, I mentioned my time working at Intel. A large portion of my time, I wouldn't call it wasted, but I would say I wasn't as efficient. I wasn't as useful as I believed I could be because I had to respond to some of those incidents that someone that loves to do incident response, that loves to do alert review could have done in a much timelier fashion with a smile on their face. But when I would, get into that repetition mode, my smile would start to turn into a frown. So it sounds like when it comes to Bulletproof, you all help with that. That's amazing. Do you all support enterprise organizations? And is it normal for MSSPs to support the enterprise?
It is, and more than you would imagine, because to those enterprise, like very large organizations, we act as an augmentation of their existing security teams. Right. I mean, the security job is a very large job, and we can have from cybersecurity focused, let's say, lawyers, to cybersecurity focused developers, to cybersecurity focused pretty much everything these days. So the large corporation security teams, they are focused on roadmap. They are focused on enabling their own business through cybersecurity and making sure that their businesses can grow without being concerned about, can I do that? Will I be hacked because I'm doing this or because I'm moving too fast, right? And they need to pay attention to frameworks and so many other things that the operational load of the day-to-day grind in cybersecurity, making sure you're investigating every incident, making sure that you are on top of things. Sometimes it's too much for even large corporations. So instead of investing in a large group of people to provide 24/7 coverage and etc., they decide to come and partner with MSSPs.
I have to jump in for a second to share some details about our sponsor for this episode, ContraForce. When you need to supercharge productivity with your existing Microsoft security stack and other leading tools, you gotta turn to ContraForce. Designed specifically for the MSP and the MSSP space, ContraForce transforms security operations by cutting through the complexity and propelling your security response into the future with generative security operations. The ContraForce SecOps workspace empowers analysts with insightful data and seamless access to information and remediation, and streamlines workflows by automating the tedious tasks across detection and response tools. Are you ready to see ContraForce in action? Discover how you can simplify your SecOps by learning more about ContraForce by visiting ContraForce.com and tell them Hacker Valley sent you. Thank you, ContraForce, for sponsoring this episode.
When we first met, Ricardo, it was in Toronto. I went up to Toronto to do a testimonial video for ContraForce. Big shout out to them for sponsoring this episode. And we had a great conversation. We talked a little bit about everything. We talked about submarines as well. Yeah. When we spoke last, though, you mentioned the impact that your company has had on breaches, local governments especially. And you had the story about St. John. So share that transformative story with our audience. Tell us a little bit about like the who, what, when, why, and also give us some of the details of things that happen along the way as well.
Of course. So the case of City of St. John is quite interesting. So I live currently in Fredericton, New Brunswick. It's a small city. I'm originally from Brazil. I moved here 6.5 years ago. And St. John is about an hour drive from Fredericton. So we're talking about Friday, November 13th. So Friday the 13th, 2020. And bear in mind, this is in the middle of the pandemic. And I got a call around 9:30 in the night with a very scared client and a very, concerned security team. And the message on the call is, I think the city of St. John has been attacked. Let's jump on a call, see what's going on. And it was a ransomware attack that pretty much disabled the whole operation for the city. And we had our team there 9 a.m. in the next morning on Saturday the 14th. And we stayed with them, I would say every day, working from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m., probably for 3.5, 4 months to get it all contained, realize everything that happened, make sure that we are helping them to rebuild and rebuild in a way that would never happen again. So it's a very intense kind of experience. And it brings us that are practitioners and are often working on blue teams or on SOC teams and trying to defend, brings us the realization of how painful it is when it happens. So having that experience of seeing the real size of the pain, it's something that ground us into the reality of this is a very important job, right? And as we start interacting and going through the incident, of course, you can imagine we're talking about 6, 7, 8 people from Bulletproof, plus a number of people from the City of St. John's IT team, plus a number of people from the support organization of City of St. John. They started executing on their emergency, I'm not saying the right name, but it's sort of an emergency reaction plan, like cities and government institutions. They have those kinds of planning. So we get into a city hall where we have a sort of a war room already set up. We have the police chief in there. We have the fire chief. We have everybody. And you ask yourself, what's this? What's this about?
Why are all those people there? Like, why is the police?
And then you
there?
realize, this is a citywide emergency. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting to see that sometimes we don't pay enough attention to the importance of having a business continuity plan, a disaster recovery plan. But I saw there firsthand that when you have those plans and they kick in and people know exactly what to do, you don't have to deal with the 80% that gives you 20% of value. We are always looking for the 20% that gives you 80% of value. Mm-hmm. And what happened with us there is that around, end of the evening, everybody would start going home because actually people need to sleep. And one of the last people to leave was Stephanie, the city's CIO. And she would sit with us and start bringing to the team a different reality, a different perspective of the reality. Saying things like, did you know that if you go out on the street right now and park your car in the wrong place and get a ticket, you will not be able to pay that ticket. Did you know that certain people will just not get their water bill this month? And we need to worry about that. We exist, and she would say we as the city of St. John, we exist to serve our citizens.
Yeah.
And right now we are we
So was it
cannot
a citywide
accomplish.
outage? Like what was down? Like you said, the police chief was there. The
Everything
fire,
was down.
everything was down.
Everything from City Hall to not essential services, because they do have manual backup plans for essential services, but everything that had a computer attached to each, which is pretty much everything, was either disabled or in a manual contingency plan.
And was it like locked up and down because of ransomware? Did they just take everything down just to like cause the outage? Like what was why were things down?
It was a ransomware attack. So it was a human operated ransomware attack that they stepped into the network. We investigated everything, and I believe they didn't exfiltrate any information out of the network. But when they were exiting, they detonated the malware, the ransomware, right? And this is, it was such a big effort that was highly documented. We have some case studies that were done around this, and even Microsoft that helped with the platform that we used for this response did a case study on that. But I think that one of the biggest lessons that I learned from that very intense exercise is that there is also a human factor. There's also an impact that because we are mostly technical, we are mostly, our minds are very logical, we tend not to realize. That when these things happen, they're impacting other people's lives. And if you bring that to the reality of an MSSP and a security operations center, when you successfully investigate an incident, very simple incident, like a sign-in from an infrequent location that someone just went in and reset a user password, because they know that, okay, so let's do this preemptively. Well, that action might actually be allowing a municipality to continue serving their citizens, might be allowing, a mining operation to continue to provide jobs to their workers, right? So it's that kind of reality that sometimes, because we are so entrenched into the technical aspects of our work, we forget.
It's easy to forget. My dad worked for the post office. He was a federal employee, and he was part of a union. And I'm sure that that city had union workers. And when you're a union worker, there's very clear things that you are allowed to do and that you're not allowed to do. So was that like another layer of complexity for this specific situation?
Yeah, there was. Yes, it was. So the city also has some employees that are unionized and some that are not. So because of that, the ones that were unionized, they had specific times that they could work, specific times that they couldn't. And people were actually concerned. The ones that had to leave because of those rules, they were concerned because they wanted to help. And they would often walk up to us and say, hey, I have to go. It's not like I want to go, I have to go. But it also taught us to recognize those things and to say, we're here to support you as well, right? But those realities that you just think, oh, I'm going to jump in and we're going to be there from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day and everybody's going to be with us. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't, but it doesn't matter. We are there to do that job.
Crucial. So crucial. It's crazy to think that, someone attacking a city is even possible. The fact that, someone might not be able to pay their bill. We don't know what the consequence of that would be, because a lot of our cities stay operational. And I used to work for a financial technology company Me and my brother Chris Cochran, we used to work there, and one day we had an incident where the payment processing capabilities weren't working correctly, and everybody was, just kind of treating it like a technology bug. Like, oh, we had 3 hours of downtime. That really sucks because we lost revenue, and it was more of like a business centric thing, an engineering centric issue. But then we heard from one of the customers that we were payment processing for, and they said, "Hey, imagine what would happen if that was you. You're out on a Friday night. You go to a bar, and then bar's closing, or you're ready to leave. You can't close your tab out. What are you going to do? What do you think the restaurant's going to do? You might get the police called on you." So I think like it's definitely underappreciated, the fact that not only like do we have cities that are doing critical infrastructure, performing critical infrastructure activities for us, but we have regular companies like Stripe, like PayPal, that are really an essential aspect to our day-to-day lives.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's interesting to see that critical infrastructure is not only what comes to mind at first, like water, power. No, critical infrastructure is the finance system, all the banks and everything that supports that payment industry, and so many other things that we need to take a minute or two to understand that if they are not up and running, our lives would be very, very different.
Right.
Right. I'm here to jump in. I think it's a time to change gears. Let's focus more on the current state of cybersecurity operations, like in the vein of the context switching, burnout. I was at a conference this weekend. I got to speak to a lot of people in the SOC space, and talk to us about that.
Yeah, I mean, we need to understand that burnout is real. The industry is really, really intensive in that sense, but it is part of the job. We are as a society, we are very used to certain jobs and to accept that certain jobs are very intensive. And we were talking about this the other day around the job of a firefighter, the job of an air traffic controller, the job of a police officer. We automatically recognize just by saying the name of those jobs that those are stressful positions. And we also recognize that these are not jobs for everyone. Sorry. You sort of need to have a specific profile to go and execute those jobs. It's not anyone that could be a police officer, not anyone that could be a firefighter, not anyone that could be a air traffic controller. We have training, selection processes, and any mechanisms to make sure that when a person is put on the position to execute those jobs, it's the right person for the job, right?
Yeah.
And cybersecurity is not very different. Once again, going back to we are so new that we don't even understand ourselves very well. Well, we're coming to terms with the understanding that the security operations analysis job is also a very intensive, specific job.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe about 5 years ago, when I first started doing the podcast, a good majority of people that were breaking in, they would reach out to me and they would be so excited to join a SOC, whether it be a SOC at a big company, small company, MSSP, they'd be so excited. And then about 2 years later, they would say, I don't want to work in the SOC anymore. And it was like a very distinct line in the sand. I do not want to work in the SOC. But for other people, I would say it's not a majority, but it's still there's a good amount of people that say, I want to work in the SOC forever. Not only do I want to work in the SOC, but I want to be a SOC manager. I want to be more of an active participant in reducing that load. So it sounds like we need to figure out what is the right profile for SOC analysts. I know that I'm not built for it. When I first got into technology, people said, go work the help desk. I said, absolutely not, guys. I'm not a help desk guy. I would get upset if I had to do the same thing over and over and over again. I know myself. So I had to make a very conscious decision to put my foot in the door and another door. So it sounds like we need to be better at saying that this job is not really it is an entry-level job in some situations, but it's not an entry-level job that everyone should consider just because they want to break in.
No, that's true. And that's on us, on the people that actually do the interviews, people that actually go and talk to people and say, oh, I think this would be great for you or not be great for you. We need to ask better questions, try to identify better who's the person, what's the profile that's talking to you. But now that we recognize that we need a specific profile, a specific person that would come with specific human skills, specific hard skills or technical skills to execute that job, we also need to do for the security operations job, for the MSSP job, or for security as a whole job. But let's talk about SOCs more. The same thing we did for air traffic controllers, firefighters, police officers, and so on and so forth, right? We took a time to understand their jobs and make everything we could so they can execute better and better and better. A great example is the way a fire station or firehouse is set up, right? It doesn't matter what happens. You hear the alarm rings, you run to the truck. You don't run to your locker to get your equipment, to get your clothing, and then where's my hat? No, everything is in the truck, waiting for you, or right at the door, waiting for you, because it doesn't matter where you are at the firehouse, you just run to the truck. The driver will be there. The driver will jump in the truck, get it on, and dress last, because everybody's sort of half dressing, jumping in, because the goal is the truck needs to leave the firehouse as soon as possible. Mm-hmm. Because they realize that 2 minutes, 3 minutes difference in arrival time is crucial for saving lives. Well, we are starting to realize those things as well. 2 minutes, 3 minutes difference in incident response might be the difference between something that was successfully contained and something that spread around the company and was a very big incident for that company. In that sense, we need to start doing that work for the security analyst a little bit better.
That's so interesting, because I've always recommended people to break into cybersecurity, and guilty I am of saying, go work in a SOC, go try to, do that. But now that we've spoken about it, you have a lot of good analogies and parallels between other industries. Like, I would not tell anyone that wants to be of service to their people, to the citizens, to be a police officer, because it does take a specific type of person, and I want a specific type of person in that job. And when you look at cybersecurity today, it's the same thing. I want a specific type of person in the seat of, responding to incidents, especially if it's for my company, for my family, for my livelihood. Like, I want someone that really can't get enough of it.
Exactly. But we can help them in their jobs, right? Imagine this. And this is a question that I have been pursuing for a long time. Sometimes things also go wrong. Maybe because we don't have the right person in the seat, or maybe because we're not giving them the best tools to do the job. But sometimes when things go wrong, the question I get the most from my executives in my executive leadership team or from clients is, how come someone that has been trained, that is successful at doing this job every day, can miss this? And well, there is one of the explanations that I found is we give our analysts today a very, let's call it, patchy way of investigating things. You're going to use a SIEM, a security incident and event management solution. That SIEM will get information from different parts of your security infrastructure, and it will give you an incident, and you will start investigating there. But that will probably not have enough information for you to get to a conclusion. So you will see, where is this coming from? Oh, it's coming from my cloud directory. So let's say you're a Microsoft shop. So you go to Entra ID to investigate. Sometimes you need more information from the endpoint. So you go to the endpoint security solution to investigate. all of that you're doing, switching from one console to the next, from the next console to another one, and then to another one. Every time you switch from one solution from another, your brain switches or changes the context of what you're paying attention to. That has a cognitive load. It's almost like a cognitive tax that you pay every time you do a context switch. That has over a day where you spend your day investigating 5 to 6 incidents an hour. And then you are getting to the end of your shift. Some people do 12-hour shifts. So imagine doing 6 incidents an hour for 12 hours. You're not going to do the last incident the same way you did the first one. But I can help with that. If we can bring everything into the same interface, into the same platform, and then you can have everything you need for your investigation there and everything you need for your response there. It doesn't need to be every time, but if we can do that for, let's say, 90% of the time, 85% of the time, that's going to remove a cognitive load that will make a difference in how tired your brain feels by the end of the day. Because this is the massive response that we get from many SOC analysts. What do you think are your work? And they will say, it's very draining. I get to the end of the day, I just want to sleep. I just want to shut down for a little bit. Some people hit the gym, and which is fantastic, because sometimes you have to tire the body to rest the mind. But some people just go home and, I don't know, play.
Zog out.
Yeah. Anyways, you zone out. Exactly. So if we can help with that, that's something really, really beneficial.
Yeah, running is definitely my thing to chill out, zone out. Everybody that's around me knows that. Ricardo, I want to ask you a few questions and kind of shift gears a little bit because we know that you're partners with ContraForce.
Yes.
I'd really like to know more about the story behind that partnership and kind of what brought you, here to us today.
So, that story I told you about, we can do this better and we can help with the cognitive load of those SOC analysts, and we can bring everything in one single interface. So this is also ContraForce's passion as well. That's why we partner with them, is to create that one platform that will bring everything together in a single interface built for our SOC analysts. So we're going down to details where we're having UI UX design teams coming to our SOC, sitting down with analysts and saying, let me have a look on how you do things. Where do you click? How you switch? What do you look for in the next one? So we can make sure that we're not only giving you one screen with everything in it, but actually that the experience and the interface help you on your day-to-day. It's not like it's unnatural to you. We want to get to a point where it's not only all in the same place, but it's also well-designed, natural interface so the analyst can have less strain. Our capacity for vigilance and our attention span, they were not built to look at a screen 24/7 and be able to realize small changes to that screen after, I don't know, you're done after 15 minutes, pretty much, right? So from that, you start seeing concepts that go into our attention span, how you can renew that, how you can build systems in a way that they are going to help you not to lose that attention span as well. So our partnership with ContraForce started around that idea, and we're building that platform together.
Ricardo, thank you so much for jumping back on the ones and twos. This is the third time I've had a camera pointed your way, and I appreciate you taking the time. Be sure to connect with Ricardo. Also, check out his company, Bulletproof, whenever you're ready to take that next step to getting that expert by your side. Because like Ricardo said, his team really focuses on proper bedside manner for things like security incidents. But thank you again, Ricardo.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Langdon. It was a pleasure to be here talking to you guys.
And now it's just really the natural time to close this thing out. We want to thank you all again for spending some time with us, hanging out. And with that, we will see everyone next time.